Hello once again, this is Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station and Travel Adventures, and this is part 3 of our series we're doing of chasing John Wilkes Booth's escape route. And today, part 3, we begin at the home of Dr. Samuel Mudd. It says John Wilkes Booth rested here for several hours on April 15, 1865, after receiving treatment for his broken leg. Now, there's a controversy of whether he broke his leg at Ford's Theater from jumping down from after assassinating President Lincoln to the stage, or if he broke his leg when he fell off a horse because he wasn't a very good horseman. And the last stop was at the Surratt Tavern. Mary Surratt was convicted of the conspiracy when they found a carbine rifle in the wall hidden that John Wilkes Booth could not take because his leg was already broken. He wasn't a very good horseman, so he wasn't able to take the rifle. Well, that rifle they found at the Surratt house is what condemned Mary Surratt to death. Give you a little history here. It says this house was the home of Dr. Samuel Alexander Mudd and his wife Sarah Frances Dyer. Early on the morning of April 15th, 1865, John Wilkes Booth arrived here with a companion, David E. Harold, and asked Mudd to set Booth's broken leg. Afterward, as Booth rested in an upstairs bedroom, Mudd rode into Bryantown, then returned home late in the afternoon to find his visitors departing. Questioned later by U.S. authorities, Mudd claimed he did not recognize Booth or know that he was being sought, and only learned of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination in Bryantown. Other witnesses stated, however, that late in 1864, Booth had met Mudd at St. Mary's Catholic Church below Bryantown while visiting Charles County, ostensibly to purchase real estate. He then came here, spent the night, and bought a horse for Mudd's neighbor. Mudd allegedly complained Booth in Bryantown and introduced him to a friend, or accompanied Booth into Bryantown and introduced him to a friend, Confederate agent Thomas Harbin. A few days later, a witness stated Mudd met Booth again in Washington and introduced him to John H. Surratt. Charged with conspiracy with Booth from the beginning, Mudd claimed that the earlier meetings were innocent. Booth had been disguised on April 15th, and he had only done his duty as a physician. Convicted and sentenced to life in prison at Fort Jefferson in the Florida Keys, Mudd distinguished himself treating sick prisoners and guards alike during the deadly 1867 yellow fever epidemic. President Andrew Johnson pardoned him in 1869. Mudd died here on January 10th, 1883. Here's the route we've been doing this blog on. We started at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Then we went to the Surratt Tavern. We took this route that Booth took, and we are now here at Samuel Mudd's house. We will end this series eventually at the Garrett farm where he was supposedly assassinated. This is a little history of John Wilkes Booth himself. Divided loyalties and iron-trees tore at Marylanders' hearts throughout the Civil War, enslaved African Americans and free United States colored troops, spies and smugglers, civilians imprisoned without trial to protect freedom, neighbors and families at odds in Maryland and faraway battlefields. From the eastern shore to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., Maryland endured the strains of Civil War in ways difficult to imagine today. Those strains continued even after Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Appomattox. John Wilkes Booth used the help of Southern Maryland's Confederate underground during his flight from Washington, D.C. after shooting President Abraham Lincoln on April 14, 1865. Now, it's really not known if Mr. Mudd was innocent or guilty. Some say he was innocent, some say he was guilty. But like I said, he only spent a few years, like 5 years in prison, and then came back home and died here. So we're going to go up here and visit Samuel Mudd's house. the exact house that Booth had stopped at and had his leg set. So follow me on this adventure. Now this is the home that would belong to Dr. Samuel Mudd, where Booth's leg was set that we're walking up to. I think it's $10 to get in. So we're going to take the tour. Hopefully we can film inside, I'm not sure, or at least take photographs. So follow me on this adventure. Alright, unfortunately we weren't able to film inside the Mudd house, but as you've seen, I took photographs like I did at Surratt House. The one bedroom there with the bed and the pictures on it was the bed that Booth's leg was actually set on. Some of the furniture in there is original. The close-up picture of the chair was a chair that Booth sat on. It's very interesting tour. It makes you wonder if Bud was really guilty or not. I'm still up in the air on that. But this road here, this dirt road that goes back into the field, is the actual route that Booth and his company took through the swamps. They actually got lost back here, but had a guide lead them out of the swamps over around to his next stop, which will be going. Our next stop will be part of this, part 3. We're just going to Samuel Mudd's grave and visit his grave where he's buried. He did come back here, had 5 more kids after he left prison off of Key West. So he was pardoned by President Johnston after Lincoln, and but that is the escape route there. Now when Dr. Mudd came home from the next town over in Charles County and found out that the assassination had happened, he seen Booth and his accomplice up on the top of the hill here on the knoll, and they were leaving the farm at the time. He was really mad and upset that he found out later that it was Booth that he helped, because he was a guest in his house. So yeah, they went through the swamp area over in here and was led around, and that includes the escape route. So we're going to see how much of this we can do today. So follow me, and our next stop will be at Dr. Samuel Mudd's grave. Okay, we're continuing part 3. We're at our next stop, which is about 5 miles away near Bryantown, the town that Dr. Samuel Mudd went to the day that Booth left the farm, finding out that President Lincoln had been assassinated. And he claimed that he did not recognize Booth because he had grown a full beard and had a scarf over his head. But we are at a St. Mary's Catholic Church and School in Bryantown, and we are going to go visit the grave of Dr. Samuel Mudd. So follow me on this adventure. So we pull up here. It's really easy to find. They say it's right next to the church. It's a great big stone, and I think I'm already seeing it. So we'll go up here and visit the grave of Samuel Mudd, one of the conspirators, or supposedly conspirators, that set John Wilkes Booth's leg for him, and ended up spending 5 years in prison for it. So I believe it's right up here close to the church. We will try to find it. And I have found it, so we'll get out of the car real quick and go pay our respects to maybe an innocent man. We're not sure. That's what's really neat about this story. There's so many questions, conspiracies, theories, and questions at hand about different situations of the whole thing and the whole assassination plot that it really amazes me. But here we are at Dr. Samuel Alexander Mudd's grave, born December 20th, 1833, died January 10th, 1883, right before or right after his birthday. He was 50 years old, I believe. And then his wife, Sarah Frances Mudd, nee Dyer, she was born March 15th, 1835 and died November 29th, 1911. So this is the grave of Dr. Samuel Mudd, the same gentleman and doctor who set John Wilkes Booth's leg after the assassination of President Lincoln. So that concludes part 3 of our trip following John Wilkes Booth's escape route after killing the president. And hopefully you're enjoying this, and if you're watching this, please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, like. Feel free to leave comments and suggestions of other things you'd like to see in the near future. In the meantime, go out and have your own adventures and enjoy life. I am going to try to complete this today. I don't know how many parts it'll be, but we're continuing our path to our next stop, and that'll be part 4. And that's the house and the thicket, the pine thicket of where Booth had hid out for 4 days. We might be able to finish this today. My plan is to go clear to the Garrett farm and then do another part of beginning at the gravesite of John Wilkes Booth and the conspiracy of he might have survived another 40 years. So keep an open mind on this. There is a lot of evidence that suggests that he could have survived. I'm not saying he did. It's just one of those controversies like Billy the Kid survived. So I will do a part on that too to end this whole series. So follow me on this adventure. Hope you're having a good time and enjoying this video. And until next time, this is Uncle Jimmy, Jimmy's Train Station and Travel Adventures. Goodbye. Hello once again, this is Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station and Travel Adventures. And today we are still continuing our trip around this adventure of following John Wilkes Booth's escape route from Ford Theater to the Garrett barn. This is part 4. We are now, after leaving Samuel Mudd's house, we are at Rich Hill. There's a marker here. It says mid-18th century farmhouse with alternations after 1800. Was home of Colonel Samuel Cox. This southern sympathizer fed and sheltered fugitives John Wilkes Booth and David E. Harold before dawn on Easter Sunday, April 16, 1865, following Booth's assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Booth and Harold hid in the woods until night of April 21st, when Cox's foster brother Thomas A. Jones helped them escape across the Potomac River. So we will go up and look at the house that the sympathizer Colonel Samuel Cox lived in, but he did not allow them to stay in the house. And just down the road is the pine thicket where they hid out for 4 days. And we'll go up here and check this out, and then we'll go to the pine thicket, and I'll continue the story. So follow me. So we are now standing at Rich Hill. It says the fugitives seek shelter. It says, after leaving Dr. Samuel A. Mudd's house on April 15, 1865, Wilkes Booth John Wilkes Booth, the assassin President Abraham Lincoln, and his accomplice David E. Harold avoided Zika Swamp and made a wide arc around the village of Bryantown. Unsure of the surroundings, they soon enlisted the aid of a guide of Oswell Swan, who led them across the swamp to Rich Hill, the home of Samuel Cox. They arrived here shortly after midnight on April 16th. According to Swan, Cox admitted the pair to the house where they remained 3 or 4 hours. Cox, however, denied that they come into the house, and a young servant girl supported his testimony. This is a picture of Cox. It says, nevertheless, Cox did arrange to conceal the pair in a nearby pine thicket for several days, where they received food, newspaper, and information. Today, Charles County and the Friends of Rich Hill partner in support of preservation and interpretation of Rich Hill. So we started here at Ford's Theater. We ended up at the Surratt Tavern, took Booth's route to Dr. Mudd's house, through the village of Bryantown, where Dr. Mudd found out about the assassination, over to St. Mary's Church to visit Dr. Mudd's grave, and we are now here at Rich Hill. Right down the road will be the pine thicket, and then right down from it is where Booth crossed the Potomac into Virginia. From that point, we will go over, try to go to the Queensberry Cottage, where he stayed a night, and follow the route down through the Burrell Grove Plantation to Port Royal to the Garrett Farm. I'm hoping I get this all done today. Like I said, this is part 4. We will see. I just wanted to show you the this is the original house. That Booth came to for aid. And like I said, he wasn't allowed in to stay in the house, but he did send him to property, which was the pine thicket, which we'll try to find on our way as we continue this adventure. This is the home. Not sure if we can take a peek inside. We will see. So you can see that it's got the original wooden structure inside. I don't know if you can see in there. But this is the home that he stopped and got aid. It looks like they're trying to do some preservation on it. So follow me as we continue this adventure, and we'll try to get to the pine thicket next, and I'll tell you the story there. So follow me. So we are at our next stop. There's a marker here. It says John Wilkes Booth and David Harold remained hidden from April 16th to 21st of 1865 in a nearby pine thicket. While Union troops searched for them, Thomas A. Jones brought them food and newspapers. Now, it's in this area here, over in here where they stayed. Unfortunately, we can't go tracking back in there because it is private property. But I'll tell you a little bit about it. They stayed there 4 days, and they did have food, newspapers, and whiskey brought to them. But this is where Booth was disappointed and found out he wasn't such a great hero he thought he was, that he avenged the South by killing President Lincoln. In the newspapers, even in the South, he was hated for it, and he was so disappointed because he thought he would be such a great hero, and ended up being not anything close to that, but a disaster, and everybody wanted him caught for the assassination of Lincoln. And it just really shook Booth up, and it made him mad. As you can tell, as he wrote in his journal, it talks about how upset he was and that it was just sickening to him that he wasn't a great hero in the South because of this. So from here we'll continue to our next stop, which is where Booth and David Harold crossed the Potomac, or the first attempt to cross the Potomac wasn't successful, and I'll tell you about that when we get there. So follow me on this adventure. So before we get to the crossing of Potomac, I was wrong. I guess this was all pine thicket here, and here's some remains of it here on private property and across the road where I showed you. But there is a marker here saying pine thicket that I wanted to show you. So after they left here, this is where they would go across the Potomac, and Jones is the person that helped them cross on April 20th after dusk to let them southwest pass to his own near dense meadow and down to the river. So that will be our next stop, but I wanted to show you some remnants of the pine thicket here where they did stay. So follow me. Real quick with our next stop, it says dense meadow, 1 mile in this direction over here through the woods to the Potomac River. It's where John Wilkes Booth and David Harold set out from here for Virginia's shore during the night of April 21st, 1865, in a boat supplied by Thomas A. Jones. So in this general direction down to the river is where they crossed. So follow me as we continue this adventure to our next stop. So here we are at the Potomac River, near the area of where Pope's Creek runs into the Potomac. Over in that area is where Booth had crossed over to Virginia. So we will be going across the bridge over there in the distance to follow the escape route and continue. And hopefully we'll get to the Garrett farm today where it all ended. So I just wanted to show you where they crossed. Now, the first attempt was unsuccessful because of the current. So their second attempt, they almost got caught by a gunboat crossing the river, and barely made it, but they did make it over to Virginia. So we'll be going into Virginia. That'll be our next stop. So follow me on this adventure. Well, folks, this is the end of the road for the John Wilkes Booth escape route. We're here on Route 301 North, and this is the site of the Garrett farm, the Assassin's Inn. It says this is the site of Locust Hill, Richard Henry Garrett's farm. Early on the morning of 26th April 1865, a 16th New York Cavalry detachment cornered John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of President Abraham Lincoln, and his co-conspirator David E. Harold. As the two men slept in the Garrett's tobacco barn, Harold gave himself up, but Booth refused to surrender. The barn was set on fire, and Sergeant Boston Corbett shot the assassin still inside. Booth was laid on the porch of the Garrett house and died about sunrise. The house and barn stood a short distance from this spot, which is actually up in this wooded area. I'm not sure how far back in. Of course, there's nothing here now. Walk back here a little ways, not far. It's all grown up now, of course. Not really much to see. But this is the general area of where the barn and the house was. Of course, neither is here anymore. So this is the end of the blog. I hope you've enjoyed it. I am going to add another part to this series, and that will be a visit to John Wilkes Booth's grave in Baltimore, Maryland, and the conspiracy that John Wilkes Booth actually survived here and didn't die at the Garrett farm, that he lived another 40 years in Texas under the alias of John St. Helen. So if you're watching this, I ask you please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment, suggestion of other things you'd like to see in the future. Until then, go out and have your own adventures and enjoy life. And till next time, this is Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station Travel Adventures. Goodbye.